All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm an associated member of. Oh wait, hold on. I'm an I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker dealer and member of FINRA. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. There is the position disclosure. It should be pretty unchanged from the last time I spoke. Sorry, just give me a second here. All right. Just watching this NVIDIA rise up here, continue to move higher after hours up to 144. Stock is pretty crazy. There was a big refreshing buyer that came in at 143.66 right after it closed that I was watching. Should thought if it broke, it would downtick nicely. And now I don't know if that guy's chasing higher or what's going on here, but the stock just ripped up. Right, cool. Let's do it. So how'd we close today? The SPYs here are down 0.14%. The Qs are up 0.25%. It's including a little bit of an uptick after hours. And the IWM got smoked. The IWM is down 1.5% with the TLT off 1.8%. So the higher interest rates really weighed into the IWM today. It was a much looser trading day today. That would be the way that I would like to describe today's trading session. The IWM actually wasn't very loose. It was just very heavy and straight down. But if you look at like the way that the Qs traded today, the Qs were really all over the place. Very strong off the open, led entirely by NVIDIA. It seemed like nothing was moving except for NVIDIA. And then it's after 10, it seemed like other things were starting to participate a little bit. Apple was starting to wake up, and Apple actually was pretty relatively strong for the rest of the day. You can see Apple here the first half hour, it did nothing, and then it started to wake up and showed good actual relative strength for the rest of the trading session. Amazon started to wake up with some strength there as well, but then the Qs just topped out, V-topped, and got destroyed all the way down. Broke the opening low, broke Friday's inside day low. Yes, at lows today, the Qs were starting to look atrocious, actually, in my opinion. Seemed like they were ready to give some more like daily chart follow through to the downside. And then guess what happened? Once again, the market saved itself, ripping all the way higher and grinding up into a pretty strong close. So very loose market today. That's the way that I would describe it. It really seemed like that was the way that things were trading. Sorry, just give me 1 second. But you know, created I think a decent amount of opportunity. This IWM got smoked though. We got to take a look at these daily charts to see if anything changed. So the SPYs continue to look fine. And I think the Dow got hit a little bit today too, right? Yeah, the Dow got hit today. But the SPYs continue to look fine. Mag 7 names seem to thrive today, led by NVIDIA. We see that sometimes when there's like the interest rate risk comes into the market, is that they'll sell off the IWM and the Qs will have relative strength and the Qs will kind of hold up. So we definitely saw that today. This move in TLT wrecked the IWM. This daily candle today is gross. You know, I guess it's technically just another pullback into technical equilibrium. It seems like we get a lot of that, and then we don't ever actually get the real, you know, downside follow through. But not a good looking candle for the IWM. The Qs are actually okay. I would say that today's low now though is pretty important for these Qs going forward. If they can breach this V bottom low at any point in the future, then they'll start to look nasty again. But for the moment, the Qs look fine, and as I was just saying, the Qs seem to save the SPYs. So now SPYs look like this is the next pivot low in this grindy uptrend as it continues to hold the 8 EMA on the daily chart, and looks fine. So our market is intact, but there was definitely more intraday volatility today, and the IWM got absolutely smoked with the TLT. So I don't know, is this TLT another warning sign? It's hard to say, because the TLT going down a lot of times means a flight to safety into these Mag 7 stocks because of all the cash that they hold. Higher interest rates just makes Apple and Microsoft a lot of money because of how much cash they're just sitting on. So higher rates is not necessarily a bad thing for these Mag 7 stocks. But the rate of descent on this TLT, I would argue, is a little bit concerning. And maybe the read-through on that is that the market is starting to become a little bit more concerned about inflation. So, broad picture here, market is still holding up just fine. Today's low will be important going forward for the SPYs and the Qs, and we'll see what happens. As far as individual stocks go today, for me, kind of a nothing burger of a day. Made a little bit money on a lot of my day trades today. Swings were really fairly mixed and don't really have too much to say about them. I tried this BYON early today on this news, and that ended up failing, but I didn't lose anything on it. I bought 1070 with some size pre-market, so I was able to sell some into this nice initial spike all the way up to 1124. Then the thing failed, and I basically ended up stopping myself out when this little wedge here broke at pretty much the same price that I bought at. So that was okay, I guess, but definitely disappointing. I thought that news with Kirkland would have a good read through on BYON, which has a pretty high short float as well, but it didn't. It didn't lead to anything. This GTLB was on my radar, but it sold off, and I never looked at it. Robinhood was on the radar, but never triggered through the level, so there's nothing going on there. And then the final thing that we discussed in the meeting, even though it didn't actually make my list, was NVIDIA 140. I was actually describing NVIDIA 140, the failure from a couple trading sessions ago, as another one of those reasons to be a bit concerned about this market, that we can't get that upside follow through, even on the TSM earnings. But then NVIDIA just woke up today, was a monster, broke out through 140. That was a great breakout if anybody took it. I did not. I ended up kind of just focusing on some of these more micro scalps in this thing. And then a huge buy imbalance came in this NVIDIA into the close. Even though I think the broader market imbalance was sell, NVIDIA had a huge buy imbalance, and they just ripped this thing higher in the last 10 minutes, and it seemed to move the entire NASDAQ higher in the last 10 minutes as well. So it pretty much describes the day. Again, from a day trading perspective, not too much to talk about. I traded a little bit of Apple to the short side, made some money on it, but it was nothing to write home about. I tried this Coinbase short into this, bounce back into the 21 EMA off these pivots. It was difficult. I was light enough to stay nimble, and was able to make a few bucks. Trailed my last bit and got stopped out of the trail on the break higher here into noon. The one thing I tried way too early, and I ended up being break even in it, was the IWM via the TNA. So I tried buying this IWM. This selling here was relentless. It was actually, not that I like to look at 2-minute charts, but it was riding this 2-minute chart at an index level to 1140. That's so rare. So just from like a time of day perspective, when I noticed this, I started to try to build into the long side a little bit at 1030-ish. I bought very small at 1035 because he had extension on a 5-minute chart, no green candles, riding a 2-minute EMA down, which really can never last from my experience. And they managed to ride that thing down for a whole nother hour before it ended up breaking up. And when it broke up, it gave me enough of a 15-minute correction that I was able to salvage the trade. But at that point, that was all I was looking for, was a 15-minute correction. I ended up putting a risk-reward stop out, and then that trade ended up being a very, very, very small green name for me. So nothing really to write home about. It was a difficult trade. This IWM was just getting cracked as this TLT could not capture a bounce at all. And And I think that's really it. I don't really have anything else to talk about. I'm just still continue to be very index focused. I thought at a certain point today that the market was shot when these Qs broke lows and the IWM was getting smoked and started to drag the SPYs down as well. It seemed like we were going from IWM selling led by the TLT to just more broader fear coming in as the Qs broke that opening low and everything was beginning to look like it wanted to sell down. And then, just as I thought that, of course, the Qs V bottomed and closed well, and now the daily candle, the SPYs, and the Qs look just fine. So that's really all I have on my end. Really not too much to talk about. It was kind of a quiet day as we're waiting for more earnings reports to come out. I am happy to take a look at any questions that any of you guys may have. Not seeing anything in the VTF. Hi Anuj, I'm doing well. From the YouTube. From Robert, as you always preach to new traders, don't trade lunch hours. Does your thesis change when you see the biggest volume bar during lunch hours, the QQQ today at 11:05? Yeah, so that's just a very general rule that I talk about trading midday. A lot of the times we'll see midday chop, and traders will just chop themselves up when nothing is going on. That is like a general rule. It's not always the case. When the market's moving, then there's potential opportunity there all day. And today the market was really moving, especially at the time frame that you're referencing, like this 11 o'clock period today. The market was, selling very, very hard at that point. So when the market's moving, there's trading opportunity. And as I was saying earlier, we had OPEX on Friday. So it's not a surprise to see all of a sudden the market loosen up a little bit on the Monday after OPEX. It's actually very normal. Even if we didn't end up giving a real breakdown or breakout in the market, there was much more intraday movement today than I think that we have really seen recently. So, definitely when there's opportunity out there to trade, then by all means trade. It's more of a matter of traders getting themselves in trouble midday when nothing's going on because they're trying to create opportunities out of nothing. June Kim asking me about the TLT. I don't have a whole lot to say about the TLT. It's incredible that the high of the recent price action is from the day that the Fed cut interest rates. That's incredible. A pullback off that made sense to me. Buy the rumor, sell the news. They obviously bought this up in anticipation of that cut. And I personally had been saying that the market was overpricing in the amount of cuts for the rest of the year. I've been in the camp of 2 more 25 basis points, and at one point the market was pricing in more than that. So it just made sense that this needed to be a sell the news after they bought it up the way that they did. Now I would not have expected that we would be seeing the TLT back down to 92 by this time in October, especially with the market continuing to hold in at highs. So it's become a really big move, and I think that now it's so funny how interest rate expectations work with the Fed on how insane the market has been compared to what the Fed actually ends up doing in terms of what it prices in. Where at certain points we're pricing in way less cuts than will happen, and certain points we're pricing in way more cuts than will happen. And now it almost seems like we're going into an environment where the market's flipping, where it's going from having too many cuts priced in to possibly too few cuts priced in. My expectation is still that we're going to see those 225 basis point cuts unless we really do start to see a bump up in inflation, which seems to be the big worry right now. People seem to be worried that inflation is going to come back online, and we keep getting these really strong economic numbers. So that's that. June Kim in the YouTube saying, I have 900 shares at $98 per share trying to sell covered calls. Any thoughts on what strike and date? Not really my game to hold positions against me and then sell covered calls. And I don't know the TLT well enough to give you advice on what kind of premium you're able to get from that to make it worth it. I would usually do... I would just try to do like as far out of the money as possible where it looks like you can still get a decent price on it. But I also don't like to do that when it's extended to the downside. I'm more talking about stocks and the TLT. You know, TLT and bonds trade a little bit differently. But I would be trying to sell call. If I was stuck long from 98, I'd be trying to sell calls like in this area. I mean, not necessarily marking the high, because who can say I can mark the high? I can't. But, you know, here on the 14th, we're extended to the downside. That's not where I want to sell calls. I want to sell calls into the bounce, and I'm concerned that that's going to be the end of the move. So similar here, I don't think I would personally be trying to do it here. I'd be trying to do it into more of a market bounce. Here, if anything, if you believe in your idea, I probably would be adding. But just make sure you have a good risk management strategy in place, and that you're not just holding and hoping and praying. Vixie Bull giving you some information to look at. What else, guys? Dennis saying, is this market bullish AF or what? It sure seems that way. Well, is it? I don't know. Look at the IWM today. SPYs with their market cap weighting look fine despite the Dow and the IWM. But I think that today was one of those days where there was a lot of pain under the surface of what looks like a pretty good chart in the Qs. Yeah, by market I mean NVIDIA. Okay, fine. If by market you mean NVIDIA, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I was looking at this chart that Jim just posted, NVIDIA in 2024 versus Cisco in 2000, and that's just enterprise value as a percentage of GDP. I don't think that there's a read-through on that, though, to the stock. It's just kind of crazy. Friday SPX straddle is only pricing a 1% move. That does seem cheap to me as well. Yeah, it's a silly comparison. I agree. It's a fun looking, you know, chart, some fun chart porn, as they say. But I don't think that actually, you know, means anything. Huh? I don't know the name. Okay. Okay. I can talk to. I don't know who it is, but I'm happy to talk to him. I just got to finish up the meeting. Okay. Hey, great to meet you there, Shyam. Good to meet you. All right. Yeah, I still have some Alibaba. I added into the gap down again this morning, but I was not as aggressive today on these Chinese stocks as I was back on the 17th. On the 17th, I bought Yin, Baidu, Baba, JD. On Friday, into the gap up, I sold all my Yin, I sold all my Baidu. Today, I bought back the Baba and JD, but did not buy the Yin and the Baidu. Then actually, eventually, I did trade a little bit of Baidu, but I just kind of took it as a day trade. And I closed out of that one, also break even into the uptick in the end of the day. So at this point, I think that these Chinese names need to base a bit. You know, the volatility in those things was so crazy, and we caught that nice gap up on Friday. I think that these things need to base out technically and set up a little bit better. So we'll see how that plays out. The Tiger seemed like it was actually relatively strong at a certain point today. Yeah, you can see that Tiger right there with some strength. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap it up there. Have a great night. I will see you all tomorrow.